Hi all, welcome back to the channel Cloud Knowledge. So this video is in continuation to the previous video which was created on execute pipeline activity in ADF and Synapse. This is a demonstration video of one of the example which we are going to see in this video. So the requirement is, if we go to the whiteboard, the requirement is such that, but before telling the requirement, what we understood from the previous video is that execute pipeline activity, it invokes the child pipeline from the master pipeline and creates logical separation of the pipelines. And in this example, what we are going to do is we have REST API, which is having data in the form of JSON. We'll take this JSON document using web activity in ADF pipeline. We'll take this data and then through another web activity, this second web activity 2, we will load this to storage Gen2 account in Azure. We know the concept. We have already studied that using two web activities, we could save the data coming from the REST API or the REST endpoint to our Azure storage. Then, if let's say the REST API is not sending proper response or the URL is not correct or due to any XYZ reason, this fails and the file is not copied, then we don't want to get the next set of activities to occur. Okay, so here this complete scenario will happen in the child pipeline. This is child pipelines activities. That is to fetch the data from the REST endpoint and save it into the Azure Blob container. Then we have the master pipeline. In the master pipeline, we have execute pipeline activity. Okay, this pipeline activity will invoke this child pipeline activity. If this succeeds to get the JSON document landed into the storage account, then it will have another copy activity here in the master pipeline to copy this JSON from this storage location to another sync location. It will copy the data only when the JSON is generated. And if this execute pipeline activity fails, or if it does not find this file generated here due to XYZ reason, it will fail. That is, we'll add a dummy fail activity. Okay, so this looks messy here. We'll go and implement so that we'll understand it better. So let's first go to the REST API which we'll be using. This is the dummy REST API, okay, which we have been using in the past few videos. We'll use the same. So this is the one which we'll use. So we'll copy this quickly and we'll go to the canvas. And this is the previous example of the execute pipeline activity. We'll close this and we'll create fresh pipelines for this video. We'll take one pipeline and name it as PL master, and another pipeline we'll create. We'll name this as PL child. So in the child pipeline, we have to perform this operation of getting the data from the REST endpoint and saving it into the blob container. So we'll take the web activity in the canvas, which is present in the general tab with the name as web. We'll take that in the canvas and we'll go to the settings tab, and here we could give the URL directly, right, like this, or we can give the dynamic content, means we can parameterize it. So let's parameterize it. So in order to parameterize it, we have to go to the white space, create child pipelines parameter. Click on plus new, give here URL child. Okay, and we'll go here. We will just select the dynamic content, select pipeline parameter URL child, and while execution, we will give the REST endpoint URL. The method will be get. We are getting the data from that URL. Authentication none, headers none. Looks fine. Now we'll take another web activity in the canvas, connect the output of the first to the second, and we'll click on the second, go to the settings, and here in the URL, we have to give the target endpoint and path. The path should be the path of the storage account container. Where do we want to land the JSON file which is fetched from the REST endpoint? So we'll go to the containers. Here we are inside the containers, and we'll create a new container. Let's say web activity output. Click create. It's created. We'll click on web output, and in order to give access, we have to use the settings here, and under the settings we have shared access token. We have to generate SaaS URL for that. We'll click over it, and here in the settings we have to give the permissions. So let's select all the permissions, and then the start date is now. Expiry, let's select it as tomorrow's date. Allowed protocols to be HTTPS and HTTP. Click on generate token and URL. It will generate blob SaaS URL for us. That is, it will hold the name of the blob, that is the storage account, the container name, and the other related details. We'll copy this URL. We'll open Notepad and paste the URL. Now, in the URL, you can see that the location is storage Gentoo account and the output container. But we want the JSON file to land inside the container with some name, right? We have to give the file name also. This is important because if you don't give the file name here in the SaaS URL, it will run into error. So let's say we want to name the file as web input json.json. Okay, let's select and go to the pipeline and paste here the URL. URL is done. The method will be put because we are going to put the file there in the storage container. Then comes the body. Body is, it represents the payload that is sent to the endpoint. What we are going to send? It will be the output which is coming from the previous activity, web 1 activity. So we'll click on add dynamic content. Here under the activity outputs list, we'll get the web activity output. Okay, output we have selected, click OK. This looks okay. And since we are going to put the data into blob container, we have to add important header which is named as XMS blob type, and the value is block within block blob with no space. You can read about different headers which are used for different sources. Okay, and for the methods. So the settings look fine here. Let's try to perform a debug run for this particular child pipeline. Here, let's give the URL of the REST endpoint. So let me just go here and we'll copy this, paste here. And see if this child pipeline is running fine. So this is running. It succeeded too. Web 1 succeeded. Let's click on refresh. Web 2 is getting executed. Let's click on refresh. This too succeeded. If we go to the output, web output container, and to the web output, we could see web input json.json is generated. If we try to preview the data present here, we could see the data has been fetched from the REST endpoint. How we'll verify? If we go here, click on this REST endpoint, we'll get the same data. Yeah, employee related details, and the same details have been copied into our storage account. Okay, now comes the role of our next pipeline, that is the master pipeline, which has the execute pipeline activity in it. So we'll go back here and to the master pipeline we'll go and take execute pipeline activity in the canvas. Correct? We'll go to the settings tab. We have studied that we have to select the child pipeline. So we'll select the child pipeline, which is PL_child for this case. Then it will automatically show up the parameter which is defined at that child pipeline level. So the parameter which was defined is URL child. The same is displayed here. We'll have to give here the value. So for that purpose, we have to define the URL at the master pipeline level. So we'll give it as URL master. We'll go back here and at the dynamic content, select the URL master parameter, click OK. Now the execute pipeline setting is done. Now our next job is, if it finds the file generated here in the web output folder, it should perform another copy operation of taking this JSON to some other sync location. Only if the file is generated. If not, it should fail. So for that purpose, we'll take copy activity and we'll connect on success output to copy activity, and here comes the on fail output of the execute pipeline activity. Will take the fail activity in the canvas. We have studied about these activities in detail in the previous videos, so I'm not gonna state it again, but yeah, upon failure it should fail, and upon success, that is if it finds a file, it will do another copy operation. So we'll click on the copy activity, go to the source, we'll go to the location. The location is storage into account, JSON. So we'll select JSON, link service, already there. The folder location is web output, web input, JSON.json. Don't select the file, just select up to the folder level. It's fine. Click OK. And here we'll give the wildcard file path. That is, any JSON which is present there, just copy it. Okay. Every time the inner activity or the child pipeline executes, new JSON is generated. So it will be star.json. Whatever JSON is present, just copy it from the web output folder. Where do we have to copy? Let's give another location. It should be JSON, storage into account only. And this time, let's say we want to copy to the test output folder, into the output files location. Click OK. Click OK. Okay. So the settings in the copy activity is done. And if this fails, if it does not succeed, then we have to go to the fail activity. We'll go to the fail activity settings. In the failure message, that is the message to be displayed in the fail activity, and the error code which we want, we'll add the dynamic content. It will be the execute pipeline activity output. And here as well, we'll write the same, because this is just for seeing if it is failing, what should be configured. Now we'll publish the changes. We'll validate the master pipeline. This looks fine, and we'll perform a debug run. Let's click on debug. Here we have to give the URL. Now we have to give the URL at the master pipeline level. So we'll copy here the URL from the rest endpoint, paste here, and click OK. Now let's wait for the execution to complete. Execute pipeline is in progress. We'll click on refresh. It succeeded. After this gets succeeded, on success, copy activity is getting executed. Both succeeded. Okay. Since execute pipeline succeeded, fail activity won't run because it is connected to the on fail output of the execute pipeline activity. Now we'll go to the output. We'll see here, refresh. New JSON will be generated. Yeah, the time changed. And it should be copied to the output folder, test output folder inside the output files. This was the location which we have given in the copy activity sync, right? Test output, output files. So here we have seen that the JSON is generated. So it is copied to the target location. And if we go to the output, click here, we'll see the run ID, and the value of the run ID we have to click to go to the child pipeline output. In the child pipeline output, we could see that web 1 activity and web 2 activity both have succeeded. It has fetched the data from the REST endpoint and have copied it to the storage Gentoo account container. This is done. We'll go back to the master pipeline output. So here we have seen the success case of the child pipeline. Okay, of this complete setup, we have seen the success case. Now let's go and check or test for the failure case. That if the child pipeline fails, how does it react? So we'll go to the child pipeline. So next, for the failure, what we'll do is we'll click on debug and we'll paste the URL and just alter it a little so that it will become wrong URL and the pipeline would fail. So we'll click OK. Now let's wait for the execution. Execute pipeline started. It's in progress. Let's click on refresh. So we could see execute pipeline activity, fail and fail activity. And here also we could see that the execution happened of these two activities. Copy activity is ignored because it's not succeeded. If we go here to the output and to the pipeline run ID to see the child pipeline's output, we could see here that web activity 1 failed because we gave the wrong URL, so the data itself has not come. Okay, output error occurred, page not found. Page is wrong. Okay, we gave it purposely, so web activity 1 failed, and in turn execute pipeline also failed. Then on fail, the flow has gone to the fail activity, and in the fail activity you could see the input, okay, the code which they got from the previous activity. So this was another simple demonstration of the execute pipeline activity and how it works in ADF. Hope you have understood the video. Let me know in comments if you have any questions. Thank you for watching. Happy learning. Bye.